This ginger has been growing indoors in my sunroom for about 3 months now, since the beginning of January. It's almost April and it is time for it to go in the garden. You know why? Ginger takes about 8 to 10 months to form a mature root. So I better get cracking and get it into a self-watering DIY planter that I'm going to be building and showing you exactly how I do it. Hey folks, my name is Tara. I garden in the Bay Area and our climate over here is hot, 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 dry, dry, dry throughout summer, which is the peak growing season for growing ginger. Now, if anyone were to ask me what the best advice I would give to a person that is growing a particular plant for the first time, it is to understand how these plants grow in their native environment. And the reason is because once you understand how a plant grows natively, then you can possibly adjust the conditions around the plant to suit those native environment conditions, especially if your native climate does not match what the plant requires. And even if your plant doesn't do really well, you shouldn't be too hard on yourself, because guess who you're competing against? Mother Nature. And guess who always wins? Mother Nature. So let's see whether this year we can do even more than we've done in previous years to grow ginger successfully in a hot, dry climate like the Bay Area. Now, the reason that I've chosen to grow ginger in a self-watering container is because ginger likes to grow in hot, humid climates like the tropical forests, rainforests of Southeast Asia. And that is a far cry from the climate that I live in over here. And the biggest problem with our climate, because it's so dry, is during the peak season when ginger wants to grow, we have absolutely no rain. We get no rain from April all the way through mid-November. So I have to really work hard to keep up with the watering. And self-watering planters make a huge difference to make sure that the plant does not dry out constantly while it's waiting for me and my schedule to water it. Because plants that are inconsistently watered just don't do well. Any plant that is inconsistently watered does not do well, whether it be tomatoes, whether it be peppers, whether it be cauliflower. They all like consistent moisture. Another problem of growing ginger in my hot, dry climate here is the heat of summer is just way too much for ginger. Now, think about ginger growing in a subtropical rainforest. There's constant moisture. It's an understudy plant growing under huge plants, trees, vining crops that are creating large leaves and canopies over it. And it really likes dappled light. It does not like direct hot sunlight. So I have to choose a place in my garden, and I've chosen this place because it is under a large oak tree and it gets morning sun and afternoon shade. So I am hoping that ginger will like that kind of environment. In fact, I did grow ginger last year as well, and I had moderate success. I'm hoping to have even more success this year. But the reason is because it was under this dappled kind of shady spot where all of my succulents are as well. So let's recap. Hot climate, check. Lots and lots of moisture, self-watering planter, check. Dappled light during the heat of the afternoon sun, check. Nice, moist, rich soil that is very, very rich in compost, because remember, in the tropical rainforest, it's constantly dropping leaves, and that's where the ginger is growing, in that nice, moist, rich, well-draining environment. And that's the soil that we're going to be making. So for my soil over here, what I've really done is, frankly, I've gone around my garden and I found a bunch of pots that had soil from last year, potting soil from last year, spent soil with lots of roots and things. So I just dumped it in this gorilla cart, and then I amended it with alfalfa meal. So that is high in nitrogen, and it will also feed the worms, because what I'm going to be adding is some great worm casting. So that's pretty much it. I'll add a little bit of fertilizer, and then mid-season I'm going to fertilize as well with slow-release fertilizer, as well as possibly with some worm tea or maybe some fish emulsion. I don't like using fish emulsion mainly for root crops, because I eat it and then, something doesn't sit right with me eating a root crop that was fertilized with fish emulsion, mainly because I'm a vegetarian. If you're not, and if you don't have any hang-ups about that, go for it. Fish emulsion is a great fertilizer. But I won't be using it. I'll use worm tea and some slow release fertilizer. So now let's go ahead and talk about the self-watering planter, and I'm going to share with you the concepts behind how I'm building this self-watering planter. It's really easy. All right, so I have got a nice large surface area tote because ginger is a rhizome that grows horizontally, so you want to give it plenty of surface area. Its roots don't grow terribly deep. Now, I have noticed that even for plants that have shallow roots, if you give them sufficient soil, they do tend to dig in. But when these roots dig in, they're going to be met with water in the bottom because this is a self-watering planter. And this is how I'm going to make it. So conceptually, self-watering planters contain soil in the upper, say, 3/4 of it, and then in the bottom quarter, there's going to be water. And I like to add fertilizer to that water, which gives the plants an additional boost. Now, the way that you keep water underneath midway or 3/4 of the way in is by using a few things. Now, I've got a couple of examples over here, but really you can use anything like a plastic bottle or a pipe just like this. This is a drain pipe that I got from the big box store. So let's talk about the concept first. So what you're going to be doing is, say you're using a bottle like this. This is what's going to be containing the water that is going to be slowly leaching out into the bottom of the container as it starts to dry out and as the roots absorb more and more water. Now, this is a food grade bottle. This is actually a chlorine bottle that my husband uses for our pool. And you need to check the triangle at the bottom to make sure that it's food grade. I'll put the chart on the screen. But these bottles are really, really sturdy. And so I really like using them because they won't deteriorate and sort of chip very easily in the soil in this planter, especially if I'm going to be using this planter year over year without messing around with the insides. You do want to make sure that the plastic stays solid. I've used milk bottles before and I've noticed that they get brittle and they break over time. So I won't be using those anymore, but these are really good, sturdy bottles. Laundry bottles are great as well. Those thick orange juice bottles that you get, those are great as well. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be making 4 holes around the bottom, not very large holes. I just took a screwdriver and I kind of pushed it in. You can use a solder iron. I don't use solder irons only because I don't like the smell of that burning, melting plastic, but I just used some force and I used a screwdriver to make 4 holes at the bottom. And then I've made 3 holes at the top. And the holes at the top are going to let the water in. I'm actually going to do something a little bit different this time compared to some of my other self-watering planters. I'm going to be making sure that the surface of the bottle is slightly above the soil so that I can fill up water through this hole rather than expect it to kind of seep in through these holes over here. And I'll show you that in just a moment. And the reason I can do that is because I'm not going to be planting my ginger too deep. So the soil depth is only going to be about this much, and then the tops of the bottles are going to be peeking up so I can fill up the water and I can close the lid so that no gunk gets in. Here's another thing that you can use. These are plastic drain pipes that I got from the big box store. I cut them and they often come with holes already, but this one did not. So my husband used a clipper and made some holes, and it has holes on the top and on both sides. So the level above the base of the planter is going to be about maybe a couple of inches or so. And then the water is going to be going in through here, and then it's going to be seeping out through the holes on the sides. Now I have covered both ends with some, this is just screen mesh that I had lying around, zip tied it on both ends, and this is mainly to prevent the soil from going inside. I'm just going to be dumping soil on top of this. And yeah, some soil may get in through the holes as well. I'm not going to worry about that too much, but this is going to let a lot of soil in, so I've closed the big opening. So one last thing I wanted to show you over here is this tote. Now make sure that you get a good solid tote. Costco sells these, these black totes with the yellow lids. I've seen them in the big box store as well. And make sure you get really sturdy totes. Don't get those $5 ones from Walmart. Those things just become brittle and break over time. But these are good UV resistant totes. And I've got holes at the bottom, roughly about 2 to 3 inches from the bottom. So this is going to be the level right here that the water is going to come up to. So not very much, maybe just about 2.5, 3 inches of water. But that should be sufficient as long as I stay on top of making sure that I come and water it whenever I feel that it's running out. And when you fill water from the top, you're going to fill it until the water starts to run out through the sides, which means that it has reached this level. So that's kind of how the self-watering is going to work. I will show you at the end of this video another self-watering planter that I made just like this, exactly like this, that is doing really, really well. I did not use the bottles in those. I used just these, but everything grows really well in self-watering planters. And I've got several from Vego Garden as well that do really, really well. But a DIY is really easy to do, especially for ginger because it requires a large surface area and I have a lot of these totes. So why not? So just one last thing, I do have this nylon mesh from a screen door that I had, an old screen door that was lying in the backyard. So I am going to be wrapping these pipes in the screen, mainly because I want to just give another layer of protection so that the soil does not go into these holes too easily. So let's go ahead and get this set up, and then we're going to be filling it up with some soil and we will be on our way to plant up our ginger. All right, let's go ahead and cover this up. Now, remember, you are going to be putting the side without any holes on the underneath. So I've got to be careful when I wrap these that I orient it that way. There we go. That's looking good. Just tuck this in all around. I'll also tuck it in front of these holes over here just because I do not want mosquitoes and things to be going into the self-watering portion of this planter. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And now all I'm going to be doing is filling it up with some soil and we'll plant our ginger. I've got some twigs and things, roots and stuff. When I was sifting my containers into this, I kind of removed the roots. I'm going to use them because you know what? Ginger likes those well-draining types of environments, and this is going to help with the drainage. So I'll put this at the bottom. And then we'll dump our soil in. I love my Gorilla cart. It's one of my favorite garden accessories. Now I can technically, let's see if this works on camera. Things never work on camera. But what you're supposed to be able to do, in fact, what you can do with this Gorilla cart is, I've got to lift it even higher to make it go in. You know what? Let's not do it that way. We'll just do it the old-fashioned way. Oops, don't run away from me. But if you've got a raised bed, it's so easy to just lift that and dump it into the raised bed. I actually soaked the soil yesterday with some water because the alfalfa pellets, they break down, and I figured over the course of the night they'll have time to soften up a little bit. I put plenty of alfalfa pellets in here. It's just a really great nutrient, and ginger is a very hungry plant. All right, I got it all filled up and I've left the little tops of the bottles visible, like I told you earlier, because I'm going to be able to open it up and fill them with water quite easily with my hose. Now, let's take a look at the ginger. Now, I haven't peeked before this video, so I don't know what's going on underneath. So let's take a look together. Bring you up a little closer here. Gently pull these out. Whoa, it's got a nice root system. Now, I like to plant these whole. Some people like to cut off the extras, especially if they've got 2 plants growing out of the ginger. I don't bother with that because you know what? It's going to rot underground, possibly, if it's got exposed raw rhizome material. But this one is looking pretty good, so let's plant this one up. Now, I like to kind of see if the ginger has found a direction that it wants to go. In other words, is it already pushing out little additional new rhizomes? This doesn't seem to be doing very much, so I'm just going to plant it over here. Not too deep, just like that. And let's take a look at some of the others here. They're all pretty similar. Now, if they had already decided that they were going to grow in a certain direction, I'd make sure that there was ample room for them to grow that way. But I think I'm just going to do this. Let's see whether it can find its own way, its own path. Got some nice large pieces of ginger. Now, these I actually got from Costco, organic ginger from Costco. And that's what I grow. You don't need to get any special ginger from any special seller unless you're looking for a particular type of ginger. They've got blue ginger and black ginger and flowering ginger. There's all kinds. So if there's something special that you've got in mind, then maybe you want to go with the seller. But otherwise, if it's just for everyday consumption, just go to your local store and look for organic ginger. You don't want it sprayed with anything. Now look at this one. This one's actually got 4 shoots coming out of it. So I can tell that it's growing kind of in this direction. So I'm going to give it ample room so it can continue to grow in that direction. Just like that. And then the last piece has 2 nice healthy plants coming from it. It's going to go right here. So now all I need to do is water it in and then make sure that I fill it with water. And the way that I know it's full of water is I will see water coming out from the holes in the tote around it. So let's fill it up. Now, technically, if you don't have the water bottle, say you've only got the pipes, all you need to do is fill water from the top. Now, a lot of people put pipes from the top to the bottom and then you fill it through the pipe like a PVC pipe. Some people even go as far as putting a little bobber thing so that you can tell the level of the water as the bobber rises because it's sitting on a cork. I just don't bother with any of that. All I do is I look for water flowing out through the bottom, and that's how I know that I have got a nice full tank underneath. So one really important thing that I forgot to mention is you have to mulch. Now, especially if you live in a hot, dry climate, mulch is your lid on the soil. You know how when you put a lid on something, it prevents things from evaporating? Mulch does the same thing. So I absolutely need mulch in my Bay Area climate. Oops, I'm just not being very nice to my ginger. I hope it forgives me and comes right back. Just give it a little sprinkling over here with a shower setting to clean it up. Whoops, a little bit. There you go. I'm so sorry. So you see over there, the water is starting to come out through the bottom. That means it is full all the way to this point. So I can turn off my hose and let me show you a couple of other self-watering planters. One that I made just like this and then a couple of others from Vego Garden. Yeah, so this planter was made exactly like the one that I just showed you, except that I only used the pipes. I did not use the bottles. And oh my goodness, stuff has grown like crazy in this, you guys. I want to show you something. This is a beetroot plant, but I'm not sure whether you can quite see, but there is a monster beet underneath here. My goodness, I've never seen, this is like a Guinness Book of World Records size beet. It's probably about, oh gosh, 8, 12 inches in size and, at least 8 inches in diameter. My goodness, it's huge. I don't know what it's doing or how it came about or even what variety it is. It's sending out these shoots that I think are eventually going to become flowers or something like that. Definitely going to save seeds because this is just such a unique behavior. I have a feeling it's an anomaly or maybe it's just the self-watering planter. Got some lemongrass and that is about to come back into growth because the weather is warming up, and this grew really large, this lemongrass as well, because it also likes that nice moisture in the soil. Let me show you the Vego Garden self-watering planters just in case you're not too into the DIY stuff. Yeah, so this dragon fruit planter was one of the first self-watering planters that I got from Vego Garden. This plant has done really well. It's about almost 2 years old this year, and it really, it survived through the winter. And this planter does have a layer underneath with those wicking cells as well as the ability to hold water. But the thing about this is there is no indicator at all. So the way that you know that it has water is you wait till it overflows from the bottom. But I think a lot of the customers may have said, hey, we need an indicator. So Vego Garden made a different planter, exact same style, except that for this one, they put this little bobber thing, and you can actually make this manually as well. So what happens is it's got a cork underneath it that's floating on the water, and it pushes it up as you fill it up. And so you know when it's full, and then when it's empty, which it is right now, it goes all the way down like that. And this is a mandarin tree. It is growing so well after I put it into this planter. Yeah, Vego Garden really makes the best, I would say, self-watering planters that I've seen on the market. I've got another one called an Easy Cube that, oh my goodness, plants grew like double the size that they normally would in my raised beds or other planters. Just that constant access to moisture when they need it, and the fact that I put a little bit of fertilizer in it as well. Oh boy, the plants absolutely love it. I had a pepper plant that grew like, I don't know, 6, 8 feet tall. It grew past my house and it was just loaded with peppers. So self-watering is the way to go in my hot, dry climate. Now, if you've got a climate where it's always raining, you don't need a self-watering planter, but in California, it makes a huge difference. Anyway, I am a Vego Garden affiliate. If you're interested in getting any of those planters, I'll put a discount code in the description if you want to check it out. And I hope you enjoyed learning about how to grow ginger. And I do have a whole seed starting class. In fact, in one of them, I talked about how I plant ginger indoors to get it going to the stage that it was at when we planted it today. Anyway, so check it out. I'll put a link somewhere over here. Until next time, folks, live green and love your greens.